Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. In today's video, as you could probably tell from my play-in there, we're going to be talking about the sound of B.B. King, and specifically, a lot of people have what they call the B.B. King box. I actually call it the house pattern because it looks to me like a house when I put my fingers on it. It looks like a little house. I don't know, just looks that way to me. So that's what I've always called it. But what I want to show you is that B.B. King had a really amazing way using this pattern of accessing way more sounds than I believe he gets credit for. I often hear B.B. King's playing referred to as very simple, but in fact, he was a master at getting just the right note, or just that note that makes this sound a little bit different from the last one, without running all over the fretboard. And I think there's a big lesson to be learned in that. A lot of people talk about, oh, I want to master the fretboard, I want to know the whole fretboard. I would rather play something really cool in one spot, to be perfectly honest. And then I'll add to that later. That's always been my approach. So in this case, my jam track as I was coming in was in B flat. So what I call B.B. King's core position is always based around whatever the one chord is, in this case B flat, on the second string. So there it is, at the 11th fret. Now, he would typically anchor his first finger there. And so if you do that and you play this pattern, you get that B flat, you get a G down here, which is the 6th of the scale. Now that note can also be found in the major pentatonic or the major blues scale. We'll get to that in a minute. So we got a root, we got a 6, we have a 2, which is at the 13th fret here, it's a C. Again, that can also be found in the major blues scale. We have a 4, which is here at the E flat on the 11th fret of the first string. That note is not found in the major blues sound, but is found in the minor blues sound. And the 5, the F here at the 13th fret, is found in both the major and the minor blues sounds. So we have a root, which is obviously found in both sounds, the 6, which is only found in the major sound, back to the root, the 2nd, which is only found in the major, the 4, which is only found in the minor, and the 5, which is found in both the major and minor blues sounds. Okay, so there's a little bit of theory, but the pattern itself is very simple. And you might think it sounds kind of really incomplete, and you'd be right. That is no scale, okay? Just so we're clear, as far as I know, and I know a lot of theory, that there is no scale on the planet that is a root, a 2, a 4, a 5, and a 6. That's just not a scale, okay? It is a conglomeration of 5 notes, and I suppose you could give it a name if you want, but it doesn't have a third, which means it is not major or minor. One thing about music theory that you learn very quickly is that the third of the scale, either major or minor, that is the only note that gets to determine whether something is major or minor. So this conglomeration of notes is neither. The way we choose whether it's major or minor is with that bend of the 2nd. If I bend it up a half step, I get a minor. If I bend it up a whole step, you can hear it gets major. And even if I bend that 5 up, I'm bending it up to the 6. I already have a 6. I'm not adding anything new. So there's minor. There's major. So B.B. King would get a very subtle change just with that little bend, right? And you can quite literally, like as the one chord is going on, in fact, I can even show you with this jam track. It's got a few bars at the top, so that here's the 5, that's the F, here's the 1, B flat, 5. So here's the 1, the top. So notice I make that major third. Here, I'll do a minor third over the 4, 1. So I'll do the major third, minor third for the 5, major third. Right, so you can kind of hear that I'm completely changing how I blend in with the chords with that subtlest of moves. And I think that's really, really important. Now, what also is really, really important to realize is that all of the rest of the notes will work over any of the chords in a blues. You can play a 6 over any chord. It never sounds bad. It actually sounds particularly nice over the 4 chord. The root, of course, you can play anywhere. 5 and 4 you can play anywhere. 2 you can play anywhere. So we have all the things that we need. Now, every once in a while, he will reach down and grab that flatted 7th. Not the 6th, but the 7th. And so to me, this kind of turns it into what I would call minor pentatonic box 3. Notice, you've probably never thought of this before, or at least most people I show this to have never thought of this before. But if you happen to know box 3 of the minor pentatonic scale, it has the same root. Similarly, if I wanted just the strictly major pentatonic scale, or blues scale, this would be box 4. If you're not already familiar with box 4, I have another video where I go through all the different boxes, so I won't belabor that here. There's also a really cool scale that B.B. King uses a lot, and I hear Robin Ford use this, and a lot of more modern players actually, and I call it the pentatonic 6, and it's the minor pentatonic, but instead of the 7, you use the 6. Instead of the flat 7, you use the 6. So I can get basically like 5 different sounds out of this. I can get sort of my major, basically like almost like a Mixolydian mode. I have root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is 6 out of 7 notes of the Mixolydian scale. I can make it minor, and that basically gives me a Dorian scale, except for the flatted 7. So again, 6 out of 7 notes. I could play the minor pentatonic and blues scale. I could play the major blues. I can play the pentatonic 6. And I can get all of those sounds right there, right in that one little spot. So the next question is, when do you use which? Now, the reality is that many of the sounds will work almost anywhere. So obviously over the 1 chord, I can play, I'm going to call it the major house pattern. So I'm making that major 3rd bend, and I'm getting that house pattern sound. Obviously, I can use the major blues. I can use the minor blues. I can use the pentatonic 6. Sorry. Sorry. So I can actually use pretty much any of the sounds, because I can use the minor pentatonic, the major pentatonic. The 1 chord, almost anything goes, so any of those options will go. When the 4 chord comes around, I can't really use the major, I can't really use major anything anymore, because that would give me a D natural, which would clash with the D flat in that E flat chord. So basically any of the minor options. So I'll say minor house pattern, which means the shallow bend. Of course, the pentatonic 6 is actually a great. And is in fact an E flat 9 arpeggio of all things. That's really cool. So that happens to be a really, really good fit over the 4 chord. I can use the minor pentatonic or minor blues. Which is what we might typically use. And the same goes for the 5 chord. I can use any of the more minor based. But what you'll notice is that I can also use the more major based. Because that gives me a D natural, which over an F is the 6. So I don't actually get anything that sounds bad. Though I still tend to favor the more minor leaning sounds, minor house pattern, pentatonic 6, minor pentatonic, over the 5 chord. It's not necessarily that it's the only option. It just tends to be more standard, more traditional, more authentic, for lack of a better word. It's what my ear expects to hear. Okay, so you've got basically, I'll say major house pattern, minor pentatonic blues, major pentatonic or blues. Again, they're functionally equivalent. I just did a video about that recently. And the pentatonic 6. I've got 5 different sounds, all from that one spot. And as you learn it and as you kind of branch out from it, you can, of course, if I know, for example, that I've got box 3 here, I can, move up from there. And of course, you could do the same thing. You kind of learn to do the same thing from other roots, but that particular root there on the 2nd string is just so convenient. It's so easy to find what we need. You can do it in any key. You just move it around, right? If I want an E, there it is. If I want G, it's all right there. So it's very easy to find this core position from anywhere on the 2nd string. And it's remarkable. And you add that to simply, and you can do stuff like take it and turn it around. And now it's the top of box 2 of the minor pentatonic. And now all that box 1 and all that box 1, box 2, standard stuff that you probably already know fits in perfectly. So you can do all this B.B. King stuff, literally just turn your hand around and you've got all of your, I'll say, regular minor pentatonic, more Albert King, Stevie Ray, all that kind of stuff. You've got all that basically on the other side. It's almost like, the first finger, and the first finger is B.B. King. And then as soon as I turn it over to my 3rd finger, I'm Albert King. So it's like you just turn it around just like that. So it's a great pattern, position, all of it. It's just a really, really awesome place to just kind of hang out, find some sounds. There's just so many great sounds right there. And you can experiment with them very easily. You don't have to take a bunch of time to learn all of these different sounds. It's just kind of a couple of boxes. The house pattern doesn't change, right? Whether you make it major or minor is totally up to you. And it gets you used to paying attention to what you're bending, what that note is and what you're going to, right? Because it's all in that, bending the 2, right? So you got to pay attention to that. That's a good thing. You got box 3, you got box 4. those are things you likely already know, or have heard of. At least you have experience with them, even if maybe they're not your favorites. They're not most people's favorites, but they're worth learning. And then, of course, like I say, if you take box 3 and you simply lower that flat 7th to a 6, you have the minor pentatonic 6 sound, which is a super cool sound on its own. Maybe you've not experienced that one before, but it's a great little way to modify that scale and get a cool sound. So have some fun with that. Experiment with it. Play around with it, because there's a lot of great music that is right there. I use this pattern a lot. Obviously, I have a course, How to Solo Like B.B. King. I have a course called 5 Easy Blues Solos, and I actually use this type of pattern and this type of movement a lot within those blues solos, because it is easier to not have to move all over the neck to get to all those different sounds. So that's another thing you may want to check out if you haven't already seen that. So I will exit here. If you have guitar playing friends that you think would dig this video, I hope you'll share it with them. As always, I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.